Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. For basically our entire existence as a species, the way we managed our personal histories wasn't really a choice. It was decided for us by strict physical limitations. But today, digital technology has completely flipped the script. It's a massive shift, and frankly, we're all still trying to figure out exactly what it means for our privacy, our identities, and our fundamental trust in the systems we interact with every single day. Okay, let's dive into this. For almost all of human history, the default condition of information was impermanence. Think about it. Documents were lost, memories naturally faded, communities dissolved, and people just moved on. Your past had very limited power over your present simply because it was physically inaccessible. But digital technology has completely inverted this default. Data storage costs have collapsed to near zero, indexing and retrieval are practically unlimited, and the networks all around us are constantly archiving everything we do. Perpetuity, not impermanence, is our brand new default. We've gone from a world that naturally forgets to a world characterized by eternal memory. So to navigate this pretty wild new reality, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the end of forgetting, look at the biological necessity of it, and explore radical proposals like data expiration dates. Then, we'll tackle the dangers of erasure, redefine privacy as temporal control, and finish up with how to design a better archive. And keep in mind, this isn't just some technical glitch we're fixing. This is a deeply philosophical design challenge where we have to balance a person's right to grow with the public's need for historical accountability. All right, Section 1, the end of forgetting, when impermanence was the default. You see, traditional physical archives naturally filtered out the everyday ephemera of our lives simply because, well, physical space was just too expensive to keep everything. Today, though, the cost of not preserving information is essentially zero. Digital networks continuously and indiscriminately archive everything. We're talking everything you post, search, purchase, or even just say near a smart device. It's becoming this massive, undifferentiated accumulation of our pasts, where perpetuity is the default. And it brings up a huge philosophical question. Did we actually lose something incredibly valuable in that inversion? I mean, is this eternal, unsorted accumulation really what a society committed to historical preservation should want? Let's look at Section 2, why we must forget. A biological feature, not a bug. In our digital age, we have this tendency to treat forgetting as a failure or a flaw. But biologically speaking, it's an absolutely crucial, active process. Which leads me to ask you directly, and really think about this. Are you who you were at 20? Should some foolish, uneducated statement, or maybe a highly questionable fashion choice made when you were a teenager, define who you are when you're 50? Our ordinary, everyday understanding of personal identity says absolutely not. People change. We grow. By forgetting, we're actually able to update our judgments, let go of the past, and, crucially, extend forgiveness to one another. And yet, the digital archive treats the past as completely equivalent to the present. A decades-old post is just as searchable, prominent, and defining as something you did this morning. And this brilliantly illustrates what philosophers from John Locke to Derek Parfit have been arguing for a long time. The continuity between who you were decades ago and who you are today is only partial. It's constructed. It's subject to ongoing negotiation. Your past selves represent choices and circumstances that might literally bear zero resemblance to your present self. The right to be forgotten is actually a profound philosophical response to a technology that completely ignores this natural reality of human development. Moving right along to Section 3, expiration dates for data, a radical proposal. If eternal digital memory is the core problem, what exactly is the solution? Well, way back in his 2009 book, Delete, scholar Victor Meyer-Schonberger proposed something that was honestly revolutionary, long before laws like GDPR even existed. Instead of standard digital files that are permanent by default and force you to manually delete them, he argued that digital files containing personal information should carry metadata specifying exactly when they expire. Think of it exactly like a carton of milk. Once that date hits, deletion happens automatically. No user request required. It's a brilliant framework because it entirely reverses the burden. Those who want to keep the data must justify holding on to it instead of forcing the individual to constantly manage and beg for their own deletion. Now, Section 4, the danger of erasure, when forgetting is weaponized. As elegant and simple as automatic expiration sounds in theory, we have to neutrally look at the very real risks when selective memory falls into the wrong hands. We need to ask, who actually benefits most here? On one side, you have vulnerable, everyday individuals escaping minor past mistakes so they can simply grow and live their lives. But on the other side, You have powerful politicians trying to hide corruption or corporate executives erasing documentation of massive fraud. And folks, these aren't just hypothetical scenarios. Under European data protection laws, requests from powerful figures to erase their history have absolutely been made, and some have even been granted. We have to recognize that selective forgetting is itself a form of power, and it inherently skews toward those with the resources and influence to demand it. Furthermore, there is a profound philosophical tradition that firmly and rightfully insists on historical memory. Think of the Holocaust memorial tradition, truth and reconciliation processes, or the historiography of slavery and colonial violence. These traditions teach us that forgetting is not neutral. It is highly convenient for perpetrators and deeply harmful to victims. Forgetting simply cannot be allowed to protect those who have committed historical atrocities at the expense of those who suffered. So any legitimate erasure framework we build must systematically exclude this kind of historical memory. Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is how it changes our entire perspective. Section 5, Privacy as Temporal Control, a paradigm shift. Usually, we tend to frame privacy in spatial terms, right? Spatial privacy is about what others know about you right now, your immediate physical location, your current passwords, your private thoughts. But the right to be forgotten completely reframes privacy as a temporal concept. Temporal privacy asks, how long can others hold and use that knowledge? Because a past disclosure or a temporary lapse in judgment honestly shouldn't be weaponized against you indefinitely. So, privacy as temporal control is basically the claim to limit how long institutions can hold and act on personal information. It argues that we need limits not just on what is known about us, but on the duration of that knowledge. This idea of temporal control is the true philosophical foundation of the right to erasure, and yet it is arguably the least understood dimension in how most modern organizations actually manage their data today. Which brings up a critical, highly practical question. Is this kind of temporal privacy a fundamental human right? Like, is it inherently grounded in human dignity and autonomy? Because if it is, the burden of proof falls entirely on the data retainers. They have to prove their reasons outweigh a fundamental human entitlement. Or is it just a regulatory response, a balancing act, kind of like the GDPR framework, where individuals have to show that their personal interest in deletion outweighs a company's legitimate business purpose? The rhetorical framing we choose to use here literally shapes exactly how courts, regulators, and software engineers will approach every single deletion request. Let's move to and see how this builds into real-world application. Section 6, Designing a Better Archive, Engineering Trust. How do we take all this abstract philosophy and actually engineer it into our everyday system architectures? Well, a legitimate erasure framework has to be designed with 3 specific steps in mind. 1, it must be contextually sensitive. It has to protect private individuals from having minor, irrelevant past events define their present. 2, it must strictly exclude historical atrocities and public misconduct. It absolutely cannot be a shield for public figures avoiding accountability. And 3, it must treat deletion as a first-class architectural concern. We can't just slap a delete button onto databases that were frankly never meant to forget. The architecture of trust has to be built in by design, right from the very beginning. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. How long should your digital footprint outlive your current self? Finding the balance between our own personal evolution and the permanent digital archive is without a doubt one of the greatest design challenges of our era. Thanks so much for joining this explainer. Take a look at the digital architecture all around you today and ask yourself, what is it refusing to forget?